Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing very well. I have a question. Whose law do you follow? And why do you follow it? I ask this because I've noticed a growing trend of people who 5 years ago would have spoken out against all of these insanely tyrannical laws. All of those people are telling you that you just need to sit down, shut up, and follow those laws. And I'm curious, who wrote those laws? And I'm just wondering. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume you don't actually know who wrote those laws. And by you, I'm addressing all of the people who are bootlickers. And if you don't know who wrote them and for whose interest they were written, why do you follow them, and why do you expect others to follow them? The law of the land, natural law, is most accurately defined in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Now, they've started amending it beyond their purview, and they have put regulations in place where the Constitution says there can't be any. So I'm just wondering if, and this goes out to cops too, if you love the Constitution and you love freedom, why then do you stand up for every law that abridges freedom and abridges the Constitution and abridges your natural rights? That to me seems like it goes against your own self-interest. And I'm just curious, who is it that's so powerful that they were able to easily get you to go against your own self-interest? Because I know that if somebody just tells me that, for instance, says you can't cook eggs for breakfast on a Tuesday, it's law that you can no longer cook eggs for breakfast on Tuesdays. Any other day is fine, but not Tuesdays. I'm just not going to listen to that law because it's insane. And I'm curious, how much less insane is it to have constant regulations on your ability to travel? All of you bootlickers who like to stick up for driver's licenses, what good do they do? What do they do besides make you pay a useless fee to a government that can't even protect you? Won't even protect you. They won't protect you. They can't protect you. And they're spending all of your money that you pay for this license with. They're spending all of that, sending it overseas on people who would just as well see you unalived as prosperous. That was kind of a screwy sentence. I got a little low blood sugar here, so bear with me. But my question still stands. Why do you follow those laws? And the answer is because they're laws. And then my question to that is, why do you follow laws which you know to be unjust? And further question, if you do follow laws that you know to be unjust, does that mean that you operate with or against your conscience? And if you operate against your conscience, does that mean that you're still a good person? Or does that make you an order follower and your conscience is completely subject to whichever orders you're given? Because that, to me, is how it seems. And if you let another person who you've likely never met decide for you what morals and ethics you hold and how your conscience is aligned, then you have no conscience. You have no conscience. And if you have no conscience, I dare say you have no soul. If you say, I do have a soul, Scott, I do, well then prove it. Prove it by standing up for what you know is right. Prove it by not being a little coward and stop obeying everything that you're told just because you're told to do it. Aren't you a free adult? Then why do so many of you free adults act like little children who think they need mommy and daddy government to help you? That doesn't make any sense to me. What help have they ever given you? Now you're not even allowed to speak words that you want because you can't speak negatively about a certain group of people. Yet that certain group of people can take all of your money that you have paid into taxes to better your own country. How does this make any sense? Why are people not proverbially, up in arms? Not literally, because that would be a call to action, and God forbid anybody do that. And in alignment with the Second Amendment, God forbid, we don't want any of that. We don't want any patriots standing up for themselves and their neighbors. Even though it's in the Constitution, it's illegal, and you better not ever do that. And that's why it's always right to ask permission to exercise your rights. Because your rights are only as strong as the permission you're given to use them. Right? No. Your rights are only as strong as the force you're willing to use to back your rights. And when you outsource that force to another entity, an external entity such as police, you lose your rights. Because then the police and politicians get to govern exactly what you have natural rights to. Why do you think you still have to pay property taxes on a home that's been in your family for generations? Because you own nothing. You know, all of these so-called truthers got all up in arms, not literally, when Klaus Schwab said, "You will own nothing and be happy." Okay? How is that any different than what these people do now? You pay for license plates on property that you should own outright. You pay property tax. You can't just go somewhere in free, on open land and build something. You are not free. Okay? You live in an open air prison. And the pathetic part is we're so conditioned. I'm not. You are so conditioned. A lot of people are so conditioned to living in this open air prison that you actually think that it's freedom. But then I see people from so-called third world countries with freedoms that the average American can only dream of. So what's going on here? Why haven't we shared our freedom with them like we did with Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam? Why haven't we shared it with them? Is it because we don't stand to profit off of them? I bet you that's it. Why is it that we only share freedom with countries that don't have a Rothschild-owned central bank? I know I'm getting kind of off on a tangent here, but at the same time I'm not, because those Rothschild-owned central banks are exactly who's keeping you enslaved. And yet you spend your entire life trying to gain as much of their little pieces of paper as you possibly can. Foregoing time with your families, missing out on your dying parents' final breaths, just so you can get more pieces of fucking cotton paper. You know, I thought that we freed the slaves so they'd no longer have to pick cotton. Well, now you do so willingly, don't you? and you call it freedom, and it's not. And just because you call it freedom, and just because they call something a law, doesn't make it right. And I'll be damned if I am gonna follow along doing things I know are immoral and unethical just because you have categorized them as being lawful. Or, I lost the steam there, but I'll be damned if I will. And what does your driver's license do for you? What does it do? All it does is enables you to be more insecure in your person's papers and effects. All it does is part you with your hard-earned money. For what? You don't even have to take a test but twice in your life. So is it for the safety, or is it literally just to keep track of you? Now, the newest thing is every car manufactured after 2029 must have automatic braking abilities. You know what that means? Yeah, and just like every other issue of tyranny, agent of tyranny, they are going to say it's for your safety. But you know what it means is that somebody other than yourself is able to stop your car when you don't want it to. And I'm sorry, I fail to see how that will benefit any, but a bunch of these brainless goons will probably back it, wholeheartedly. I'm surrounded by children who think that they're adults, but act like children, and I'm surrounded by idiots who have indebted themselves for the rest of their life for a useless piece of paper that says that they memorized things and spit them back out. And those people are the so-called experts, yet they can't even see the truth that's right in front of them, that they have fallen for the most obvious Ponzi scheme this world has ever known. I've noticed that the more you make per year, the less willing you are to actually see truth and see things for the way they are. It's so easy to buy weak-minded people out with a couple of zeros. It's so easy. Threaten to take away their creature comforts, people will do anything. They would turn their mother into the Gestapo just so they get an extra block of cheese. Man, this human society has fallen so far. There is no land of the free and home of the brave. I'll quote Brian Young, this is land of the free, home of the slave. At least the slaves that were alleged, owned in the 1800s, they knew they were slaves, and they tried so hard to their dying breath oftentimes to become free men and women. And you know what? They succeeded. Yet here we are with a bunch of Uncle Toms, proverbial Uncle Toms, who will stand up for a tyrannical government just because it's easier than standing up against them. And I think that's just pathetic. It's just pathetic. And I have no respect for complacent people who just say, oh, well, yeah, that's just the law. That's just the way it is. Well, okay, is that how you want it to be? No, but that's just the way it is. And who makes it the way it is? Well, the government does. And who is the government supposed to report to? Well, it's a democracy. It's not a democracy, but okay, we're getting closer. And who controls a democracy? We the people do. Full circle. And you don't see why you need to stand up to tyrannical laws. I'm just baffled. Are you just so full of fear that you can't imagine a small risk just to secure the rights, the continued rights and freedoms of your children's children? Because right now where we're at, we got maybe a decade left in which we can actually fight this. After that, dude, people won't even know what a right is. They'll be so wrapped up in this technological freedom that is the metaverse, they won't want to leave. Guys, we're in chapter 1 of every dystopian novel that you've ever read. And I realize that the percentage of people who have actually read any novels, or any history books for that matter, is dwindling every single year. But I suggest you pick one up because we're living it. And it doesn't get solved by voting. Okay? You cannot vote your way out of tyranny. All you people on both sides that admit that an election can be stolen, if an election can be stolen by tyrants, it will be stolen by tyrants. If it will be stolen by tyrants, it follows that it has been stolen by tyrants. And if an election has been stolen by tyrants, you can no longer depend on a system of honest voting to vote your way out of tyranny. Who was it? Who was it that said the tree of liberty must, from time to time, be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants alike? I forget who it was, but it's true, man. And that tree is thirsty.